Okay.
What's it say? It says, oh, hang on a minute.
It's recording.
Is it recording?
Yeah, it says recording.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Because I didn't get any message up on there. I just pressed record. Maybe it is going to do it automatically. Oh, am I muted?
I can hear you.
Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll make a start. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining my session on virtual storytelling for all ages. I thought I'd just start by telling you a little bit about what I do. I used to work as a teacher librarian in schools for over 20 years. But for the last 10 years or so, I've been running my own consultancy and training agency. So I go and visit schools all over the place. But the interesting thing is that my background isn't really very traditional for a school librarian. I actually started by doing a degree in biochemistry and before doing a master's in information science. And I started working for the pharmaceutical industry. And it was during that I got into market research and qualitative market research. And I found that I was having to explain some quite dry concepts to doctors and patients and pharmacists and people like that. And I just thought it would be much easier if we could use some games and maybe some tech games to get them really interested, to try and interview them and get out the information that I needed. And so I've always had this a bit geeky side of me where I've loved tinkering with things and exploring things and taking risks. And actually over lockdown, one of the things that I did was I decided, well, I got asked by a publisher to write a book called Playing Games in the School Library, which was published in September last year, and which includes an awful lot of VR applications that I'm going to tell you about during this session. But one of the things about that book was that I actually gathered case studies from all over the world. So including the States, but also including Serbia. I know there's somebody from Serbia out there. So I've got case studies from there as well, literally all over the world from east to west. So I say virtual reality, I think, is such a brilliant thing to do. And I really think it's something that everybody ought to be into. I'm squinting because I've got these very, very faint controls on my computer. So because my return button isn't working, I'm having to squint and use those instead. However, a mention to the sponsor, to SJSU, for actually making this conference happen. I've already been to the keynote and heard some fabulous stuff already. So I think we're in for a real treat today, listening to all the sessions. So a little bit more about what I'm going to be doing on here. I'm hoping that by the end of the session here, we are going to, it doesn't like these transcripts coming up. I think because the transcript's coming up, it's slowing down. Oh, my controls. There we go. So we're going to look at the impact of storytelling on learners and also how we can teach it. Looking not just at virtual reality, but I also wanted to include augmented reality and what I call mixed reality, where you can use the tangible physical with the virtual at the same time, because I think that can really enhance people's experience with this kind of technology. And also we're going to take a little look at how we can use that technology more effectively in a teaching environment. So I want to start with a quotation from somebody who's not so far away from SJSU, but they're at the University of Southern California, called Mary Helen Imordino Yang. And some of you may have heard of her, but she's an ex-classroom teacher who's now a neuroscientist. And she's amazing because what they've done is they've done some brain scans of people when they've been shown an emotive picture or been told an emotive story. And they've actually looked at how the brain functions when you hear that. And they've discovered that everything is emotional involvement. No matter what it is, it's every part of the body that gets affected by it. And part of the brain system that you have is called the salience network. And that's the bit that controls perception and emotion and interpersonal experience as well. So she's shown that even if you show a mathematician or anybody else as well, you know, a physicist or something like that, somebody who you might think would read information and perhaps not really be that emotively involved, it actually has this function on them when it's told as a story, when you're trying to get the concept over. And the reason behind this is because when we hear something that's emotional that we can connect with, what happens is we go away and we start reflecting on it. And because we start reflecting on it, our brains can make lots of new connections to the information that we've heard. And it's that excites or awakens our entire body. So my argument is that with things like virtual reality, that's exactly what we're doing. We're immersing people actually into that kind of environment so that you can really, really become connected and your whole body can respond. And that is how we can become more motivated about the learning. So that's a little bit of the science about how it actually works. On the other side, when we're using technology, I think we've got to be quite careful that we're not just using it as a gimmick. And one of the tests that we can do is called the SARAM Test. Some of you may have heard of this as well. And this is where it takes you through having no technology to substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition of how we use a particular piece of technology or product. Now, the thing about this is that when we're using techniques of technology that we really want to have an impact on learning, then we're really looking for things that develop us at the modification or redefinition stage. We're not so interested in substitution and augmentation. So how does this work? What does this mean for storytelling that we're looking at now? Well, no technology would be just somebody telling you a story. But then we might say, well, it could be at the substitution level. And if it was at substitution, well, maybe we write down that story and get the computer to read it out using voice to text. Then we might say, well, what about augmentation? What does that mean? Well, that might mean that we bung in a few slides, a few pictures, and that sort of augments our story and makes it a bit more understandable. Modification, we're beginning to move into that learning impact area. And this is where we might embed something like a choose your own ending or something like that, which would be less easy to do if you were just telling the story without technology. So the technology is enabling us to add in some more elements. But when we go into something like virtual reality and we add in a virtual reality headset, then we might be able to interact with a new landscape. We can be avatars. We can make actions that actually influence our story. Wouldn't that be fantastic? We could do all of that. So this is the sort of thing that virtual reality can allow us to do, is taking the technology, but it's really making it purposeful. And the reason why I've gabbled a bit through the theory is that I really think that it's important to understand that the technology on its own, really, it's just a piece of kit. It's what you do with it, and it's how you apply it to the learning environment that really makes it come to life. And that's what I'm going to show you in a minute, showing the applications of these theoretical models. First of all, Fiona Aubrey-Smith, she's invented this word called PedTech, which is all about how you use learning pedagogy within your EdTech to make it work. And she says, no technology has impact on its own. It's how it's used that's important. Here's another great quote, I think, and this is one that we can kind of contemplate on, because it says that when you introduce a piece of technology into your classroom, it's nearly all designed with the school in mind. So the school decides to invest in this piece of equipment. Very rarely does that piece of equipment look at what the student needs. We have it as a school, and then we try and apply it to the student, and we do it that way round, not the other way round. And maybe we need to kind of be mindful of the other approach. And the final quote I want to give you on here is by Don Hamachek, and he's an educational psychologist. And he says, consciously, we teach what we know, but unconsciously, we teach who we are. And within technology and VR, this is really important, because if we don't show enthusiasm for it, if we don't show the benefits of it and want it to succeed, then we can have a very negative effect on some of the students or adults that we're trying to teach. So we need to kind of frame our use of technology within this theoretical framework, I think, in order to get the best out of it and to make the most impact. So what can we do? Well, first of all, before we've actually do any kind of VR at all, we might need some models or something to actually work with, because just as we tell a story and we get some characters together, we need to actually create those models. So how can we do that using some of the EdTech that's out there for virtual reality? Well, I think we heard in the opening speeches about Oculus Rift. Some of you may be using this already, but this is where we're going to combine a headset with hand controls as well. And there's some wonderful products out there that allow, if we've got learners and they want to make a story and they want to create their own characters, well, why not take Oculus Rift and pair it up with apps like Gravity Sketch or Tilt Brush, and these actually allow you to create your characters, to draw them out and then make them come to life. And that takes quite a lot of skill and quite a lot of practice. And maybe you might be thinking, oh, well, that's sort of for the tech experts, really. What else can we do? Well, there is some ready-made technology out there with models and scenery. What about things like the Smithsonian Museum? They've got a whole load of stuff out there which has got 3D models that of their museum artifacts and things like that that we can embed into our creation. We can get cheap models of everyday things really easily from websites like Sketchfab and Thingiverse. Many of them are free. We don't have to pay for them all. And then if we wanted to, you know, we could use these to make backdrops, as I'm going to show you later. You can also, on YouTube, of course, you've got, I discovered on YouTube, you can get these fabulous sort of like 3D videos and things like that you could use to create your own VR experience. And one of the things I did in lockdown, which seems really silly now, is that I'm still doing it actually. I put on a pair of 3D goggles, went to YouTube, found a video, put it into VR mode on the settings, and have been steadily walking around the world. I've done the States, I've done Canada, I've done the Caribbean and South America, I've done France and Italy, I've done a couple of the Balkans, and I'm currently walking my way through Lithuania. So if you want to follow me on that, you can as well. But what an immersive experience. I would never walk on the treadmill on my own, but with these goggles on, I really believe that I'm in some of these countries that I'm visiting. So, you know, it can give you that really immersive experience. And I've even been telling my friends about, in storytelling, the things that I've seen in Estonia. I haven't been to Estonia, but I've seen all this stuff and I can explain it to them. And I think that's one of the great things about this. It's empowering us. It's empowering our descriptive powers as well. What else can we do? Well, we can make some static type scenes as well. There are things like 3D Bear and Paint 3D, which I've used to actually make virtual backgrounds that you can turn round. So they're 360 degrees, and you can actually capture those and then embed them into a VR experience. Likewise, you've got things like Reality Composer and My Web AR and the Adobe Aero as well. They all do of these sorts of things because they are completely rotatable, and so you can walk around them and so on. You've got things like SketchUp as well, which is a slightly easier thing to do because you can do it on your computer compared to Gravity Sketch and Tilt Brush. So you don't have to use the Oculus Rift to do that. But they're wonderful and they're really easy and quick to learn. They're not difficult, and there are huge numbers of tutorials on YouTube that you can go to, or just any other video channel, and you can just go to and find out how to do them by playing along with what you see on the screen. The other thing that I've also discovered is that you can make 3D Bitmojis now. So you don't have to have your static little avatar. You can make them 3D and you can rotate them again and embed them into something. So, you know, there's all this exciting tech out there that's really taking off at the moment. And there's more and more each day. But some other things that we might do that you may again have already played with. There's the QR codes, which I think is like taking you to virtual reality, because you can connect a VR code, a QR code to anything that you like, really. So you can have it to a website, or you can have it to an image, you could have it to a PDF, you can do it to all these things. And ThingLink works very similarly in that you can link one thing to another within a virtual reality background. So you can tag things. So if you have made, say, a 3D background of something, then you could actually then, using Paint 3D or 3D Bear or something, you could then tag it using ThingLink. You could actually put tags in there, giving information or taking you off to somewhere else. And the other one that I really like is iJack. Now, I used to use a little app called Aurasma, which then became HP Reveal. And now the closest thing to it is called iJack. And what that does is it takes a static image and you can apply a video to that image. And then the image is triggered by literally looking through your mobile device to the picture, the static picture, which then, if it gets triggered, plays the video. Now, one thing that I did on that was we had some kids who were trying to compose a poem in the style of Wordsworth, and they made these poems, and it was to do with View from a London Bridge. And what we did was we got a huge, great big picture of London Bridge in the old days, blew it up, and it had lots of boats and things in the picture. And every boat that was in the picture, we tagged a different student reading their own creative poetry, tagged to that little picture, so that when you wipe the mobile device over that trigger, the video of them reading the poem sprang to life. And again, it's a great thing for storytelling. You could make a huge, great big picture of something. You can use apps like Blockposter to blow up pictures to whatever size you want. And then you can use iJack to tag things and have a narration of a story so people can follow the story through. And I think, you know, that kind of technology, that virtual reality, is absolutely wonderful. So those are some things that we can do to actually to make some stuff, to make some models. But what about if we want to actually create our own things? Well, we can do things using Minecraft and Roblox. I had some kids who were, for a history thing, had to build a castle, and we made up this scenario whereby they had to sell their castle plan. They were architects and they had to sell their castle plan to the king, and so they had to come up with a story as to why he would want to buy their castle. And they actually did it using Minecraft, because I was fed up with the real castles that were sitting around in my library. So I made them do it on Minecraft, and then they had to video it and tell the story as they walked through the castle Minecraft castle that they'd created, explaining all the different features and selling it to the king, who was the history teacher. Then we've got a load of other stuff here, which is great. There's Google Arts and Culture walkthrough. So somebody said in the keynote session about visiting the Louvre, you can visit museums all over the world using Google Art and Culture, and it's a virtual reality experience. You can go around all and see things. You can go up close to it. You can almost stroke the paintings. Then you've got things like the Expeditions Pro, which used to be Google Expeditions and Cardboard, and they allow you to sort of go to places all over the world, but actually to be there in the center of that learning experience through virtual reality. And the same thing's true with the Robot Lab VR. They've kind of taken over from Google Expeditions. Other things that do very similar are things like Assembler, which allows you to create a virtual space and to go into it, and you could play games in it, or you could tell an interactive story. What about if you were to set up a murder mystery or something like that in there? You could do that. You could also do the same using Metaverse, which again is a very similar kind of product. And again, Mozilla Hubs gives you that little bit of interaction where you could go into a room as an avatar and explore the room with other people. So it's a joint experience within a virtual environment, a bit like Second Life. Then there's good old, if you're not that into all this technology, there's good old Google Street View. And I've used this for lots of storytelling exercises whereby you can actually go into the space, blow up Google Street View as if you're more actually in that space and explore the setting of the story and find all the things that might be featured in a story that you've read, and then go back and create your own story. And one of my favorite VR things is Merge Cube. I don't know if anybody's used that, but the Merge Cubes are whereby you can create your own 3D product, or you can use one of the things in their library, and it connects to the cube. And the cube is a tangible thing that you can either buy, or you can download a template from the internet and make your own. But the beauty of it is you can hold it in your hand, and it's like as if you're actually holding the object itself. And there's a paper by Don and Rayner in 2017 that actually said that holding objects in your hand reduces cognitive load. So in other words, it enables the learning to be made much easier, because you really think you're holding something and you can rotate it and look at it at all different angles. So I'd say if you haven't seen Merge Cube have also got some interactive stories ready-made that you can use. And you can either use a headset, or you can just use your mobile device and look through that at the cube. There are some other great little VR type apps if you're trying to get that connection between writing and reading and telling stories. And these ones I love because they are for the younger kids. Wonderscope is like a little story that you immerse yourself in, but unless you ask the right question and you make it grammatically correct, it will not give you the answer and take you to the next part of the story. Drawmatic AR is fabulous. You write words in the special note paper, and then if you write a word like castle, a castle springs up. If you write ninja, a ninja, and if you say the ninja runs across the page, the ninja really will run across the page. And I think that, this bringing your stories to life as well using VR is really, really important. And narrator, again, is another one where you can actually do these things, and you can really write the story and then watch it coming to life. And the same with StoryFab. That's the idea of it, is making it real. So what else? Well, then we could do some real life stuff. And these next set of apps that I've got here, fabulous. Seppo and Goose Chase. You can set up your interactive story in real time around your library or around your environment, and put tags on trees, on bushes, or on books in the library, or anything else you like. And you can run around the whole place, and you can kind of find the next clue and the next place to go in your story. And it's supposed to be for scavenger hunts, but why not use it for storytelling? That's what I say. It's perfect. Probably my favorite app at the moment is Figment. I love Figment because this allows you to walk through a portal on your device. So you make a window appear or a doorway, or tell you what, if you were doing the story of Narnia, you could be sitting there in your library or in your classroom, make the Narnia cupboard, wardrobe, walk through the wardrobe, and there attached to Figment is a 3D photograph of Narnia, and you literally physically walk through from your setting into Narnia and have a look around and see all the things that are there. So again, to come back and tell about your experience, to relate that, fabulous for storytelling, I think. What else? Well, we can bring all of this together, and there are some companies that are doing this. So Class VR and CoSpaces, things that maybe you might have heard of. These are things where they bring all of this modelling, backgrounds, having virtual rooms, having portals, having experiences. They all come together in one place. Disadvantage, you may have to pay for some elements of it, whereas the other stuff I've shown you, most of it free. So it's up to you whether you want to do the work of putting it together or not. But it's an easy way of collating it all. So what else? I know I'm conscious of time here, but so I'm just going to finish up with a couple of little things so we've got some time for questions. I've recently discovered, I did my book launch on Kumo Space. If you haven't visited it, it's a great bit like Second Life, but it's like virtual reality in reverse, because you go into rooms that you create a virtual world. In these rooms, you can put your own furniture, you can decorate the rooms, and you can have as many rooms as you like. And then you invite friends or colleagues or meetings to come and join you. And you get little Zoom-like videos where people come along. The only thing is not terribly suitable for children if you put a bar in there. So, but you can have virtual drinks as well if you're adults and enjoy that. And you can stand around and chatting. When you're close to people, you can hear conversations. When you're far away, you can't. And you can put GIFs in the room. You can put all sorts of different visuals and things like that. And I've actually made a game in mine whereby you can go and find all the book titles and put the book titles together. But there's some great stuff in there. And then the other thing is that, does virtual reality have to be visual? Well, maybe not. And there's a brilliant company called Now Press Play. We've got pink headphones, and students, basically, it's designed for children more, but they put on the headphones and they get told a story, but then they have to act out elements of it because it's descriptive and it's absolutely fantastic. You've got anybody who's hard of hearing, visually impaired, rather, that it's a really good thing that they could have as well. And there is a text version of it that you can see, but the idea is to fire people's imaginations just through audio and descriptive audio. So finally, a bit of a plug for the book here, but this is my book that I did, and it's available on discount from the ALA store if you want. And it's got all sorts of different games, but including a whole chapter on virtual and mixed reality, and a lot of the ideas that I've whizzed through today. And also it's got lots of other games and gamification concepts in there as well that you might be interested in. So that's on there. And with that, I am hopefully left a little bit of time for any questions, like 3 minutes.
Yeah, so, okay, I'll get into it real fast. So Julia asked early on during the SAMR slide whether there are other sides to modification, or is user choice usually like what you're talking about?
Well, modification is where you've got something that you couldn't just use without any technology. So another example might be of modification might be if you were writing a Word, Word document would be substitution, you're typing it. But if you started moving around the paragraphs, for example, that would be modification, because that wouldn't be very easy to do without your technology.
Okay, So a lot of people have been using Google to wander as well.
Good.
Melissa and Kelsey is really into the murder mystery idea.
Yeah.
Julia is also wondering, where could we start with all of this? Her community is not very tech savvy, but what's a good way to get started?
Well, do you know what I did? This is really silly, but I had a pupil, a young girl who was autistic, and they had to go and write creative stories about being in a wood. And she kept saying, well, I'm not in the wood, I'm in the classroom. So what I did was I printed out loads and loads of pictures of trees and put them on a long piece of paper, and I wrapped it around with a bit of sellotape, and I put it over her head, and I said, now you're in the wood, tell me what you can see. And she walked around. So that is kind of like virtual reality with no tech. So, you know, it's taking people to another place. I think that's really what, you know, virtual reality is about. If we can do it with tech, it's fabulous. But, you know, there's simple things like Google Street View and things like that that we can use to take people elsewhere and take them into their imagination.
Macy is wondering whether the apps you talked about were compatible with the Oculus Quest.
Some are, not all of them, but some are. And certainly the ones that I mentioned, the Oculus ones I mentioned, yes, they are.
Okay, that's helpful. Let's see, murder mystery sounds great. Oh, is there tell us more about the interactive murder mystery stories within these products. Is there somewhere I could see what that looks like?
Yeah, well, I think it's up to you to decide, you know, what you want to do. So, for example, you could just have a series of rooms that people could go into and explore around and find clues. So you can kind of set your own clues, and maybe the clues are revealed if you answer a question. So a lot of the things that I'm showing you, you know, require what I call mashups, really. So that maybe, you know, you go into a room and there's a QR code. So then they have to get out another person, scan the QR code in order to get the clues and things like that. There are loads of murder mystery things online that you can do. There's, you know, you can find there's a lot of websites where they've got ready-made ones as well, which you can buy, and then you can adapt them to a virtual environment. You don't, because you can make your own rooms. And I think just using things like Google Slides with Paint 3D or 3D Bear or something like that, make your own environments. There was one school I thought did a fabulous thing. They've been studying the story of Anne Frank, and they actually made the 3D room of Anne Frank's room and then got people to sit in it virtually and narrate what it might be like to have been living there. But how much more real is that, you know, because it's like you're really there. And if we go back to that theory that I was talking about right at the beginning, it's about that. It's that state of flow that takes you out of your normal environment. Time seems to fly. You know, you're so immersed in it that you want to explore and you want to find out more.
Okay.
I've just seen the chat. Yes, most of the apps I've shown you are free to use, and I'm going to be putting the slides. I'm going to be sending the slides after the presentation, so you'll be able to get those as well as the recording.
Okay, excellent. One more question if we were 2 minutes over, but would you like mind one more?
That's okay.
Okay, so Scott was looking on guidance about student creation ethics to consider whether there's student creation ethics to consider in terms of creating immersive experiences that are from other communities, in particular underrepresented communities.
Yeah, I think, you know, you have got to be careful when you're doing it. You can't, I think this is where the educator as a facilitator comes in, because I think you have to put certain rules in place about what's permissible and what isn't. And it's not just about, you know, the ethics from that point of view. I think certainly in the UK, they're very hot on copyright, and there is an issue if you're sharing, even with other schools, that certain material might be permissible within your school community, but you're not allowed to share it outside. So that's something that definitely needs to be looked at. And also, I think the other problem is that, you know, some, I don't know whether the situation's the same in whatever part of the world you're in, but certainly in the UK, again, the IT departments can be quite sort of blunt when it comes to what's permissible mobile app wise. And sometimes these things have to be created in a home environment in order for them to work.
Okay, Scott says thank you for that. Okay, yeah, that's the last of our questions. So if you want to wrap up.
Yeah, just say thank you ever so much, everybody, for listening, and for the 35 people that are still online. I'm impressed by that. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great time, and thank you so much for moderating as well. That was really good and really helpful to have somebody else in the room. And go explore, go and create and play. That's what I say.
Thank you.
I'm just sorry I couldn't show any videos, but there wasn't time.
Okay, you can stop recording now, I think.
Stop. Hang on. Find my recording. More recording. Stop recording. There we go. You sure you want to stop? Oh, it's recording to the cloud. Yeah.
Okay, great.
That's okay.